Hey there, I'm Sal. Thanks for checking out the video. Today we're going to be replacing a majority of the interior lights in my truck with LEDs. We're going to do the lights behind the gauge cluster, behind the HVAC controls, up in the dome lights, and any other ones that we have extras for. I'm going to try and keep this quick and to the point, but at the end of each section I'll make sure to have a picture of the back side of whatever panel I'm working on, with a list of what types of bulbs and how many of each you'll need to do this job. So let's get into it. Okay, we'll start with the gauge cluster lights first, and to get this bezel off, we have to remove this lower panel, which has four 10mm bolts, two on either side of the steering wheel. Once those four are out, you can pull from the right side here, and you can see it loosen up near where the key goes in, and then it just kind of pops out, and that's all you got to do with that right there. Next, we'll remove the two screws up top in the bezel, and unfortunately I lost my little shorty Phillips head screwdriver, but you can still kind of feed a longer one up and behind. Now to take the bezel out, we'll put the steering wheel all the way down in a low position, and then we'll actually want to put the key in and put the truck to the on position so that we can put it into the low gear and give us that clearance to pull the bezel out. So you just kind of pull and you can see it release. And now that we got the bezel out, we got four Phillips head screws that are holding the gauge cluster. Four screws out, we can pull the gauge cluster right out through the front. On the back, there's four connectors that you'll want to disconnect so that you can pull the gauge cluster out the rest of the way. Okay, so looking at the back of the gauge cluster here on the bench, all of these twisty things on the back here are all light bulbs. So you can see if we twist it out, these are T10, a size T10 bulb, and they all have this green film over it, which is what gives the gauge cluster the green tint at night. So yeah, this is what we will be replacing. All of these at the bottom are for like check engine, seat belt, for high, whatever. That's what these indicators are for. These down here on the side are a different style bulb, and this is for your park, neutral, drive, low, whatever. That's what those are. But what the big ones that people like to replace are these four main ones and this one here, and that'll change the color of the backlighting on all the gauges. The bulbs we'll address first are the big ones, and they are size T10. So I bought a set of LED replacements on Amazon. They'll be linked down below, and we will just pop out these old ones. They just kind of wiggle out. You can throw the new one in, wiggles on in, and easy as that. We'll pop it into place and should be good to go. Of note, some of these might be directional, so if you put them in and they're not working, you might need to flip the polarity inside of the housing for it. So just worth noting, if you put it all together and half of them aren't working, that could be the problem. The last bulb we'll need to replace for backlighting is this one right here. It's a little bit smaller. You can see it's a size T5 bulb. The other ones were 10s, so you can wiggle this guy out and put in this smaller T5 size into that hole. And now we're good to go. The next bulbs that I'm working on now are the park, reverse, drive, etc. indicator lights. These are a 4mm Neo style bulb that can't really be removed by hand, so either gently use a flathead to shimmy them out like I'm trying, or just find a Phillips head that fits to remove them. The LED replacements that I bought fit very tightly, to the point where I was a little concerned that they were going to ruin the circuit board wiring. And then also, once I reinstalled on the truck, I had a bunch of issues with them not working or lighting up incorrectly, so I just ended up going back to stock, and honestly I wouldn't recommend using them. If your drive light bulb is burnt out, like mine used to be, and honestly a majority of the other Tundras on the road, I would recommend buying OEM to just make sure that it fits properly and won't give you any weird issues. It is worth noting that for 2005 and 2006, the backlights for the gauge cluster are actually soldered in, so it's not as easy to just pop out the bulb and pop a new one in. You probably could mess around with it and replace them, but it's it's not as easy as swapping bulbs. So kind of count that out if you own a 05 or 06. You can still replace the bulbs behind the air conditioning controls and stuff like that, but just the gauge cluster is kind of off limits because it's all soldered in. Okay, awesome. So I got it all plugged in the back, and if I flip on the lights, backlighting looks great. Nice and crisp white light. It's still dimmable, which is great. The flickering isn't happening in real life. It's just from the LEDs and the camera shutter. But yeah, I did have some issues with the drive lights. It didn't seem to like the LEDs, so I went back to the stock halogen ones that came in the truck, but I'm just really happy with the gauges being nice and white as opposed to the old green. Okay, next we'll do the lights behind the HVAC controls, and to pop this panel off, there's 2 hidden screws up here behind the air vents, and then there should be 3 across the middle. I'm missing my center one. And then with all the screws out, you should be able to just pry it and release the whole panel, and it should just come right out. These bulbs can definitely be replaced in the car, but I just decided to disconnect it and bring it inside to show everyone a little bit easier where the bulbs are at. Okay, this panel's a little bit more straightforward here. We have the 3 T10 bulbs in the middle, and then a T5 up here, and a T5 down here at the bottom. You can see there's lights built into some of these other buttons as well, and I think you can replace them if you pop the button out and then replace that tiny little bulb in there, but I don't plan to do that. I'm just going to do the backlighting, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I just plugged it back up, and you can see that these 2 are working, but this one isn't. So it means that the polarity is flipped. So I can just undo it, spin the bulb 180 degrees. And now it works like it should. So we'll have to do that for this one, and then this one down here as well. Sweet. Now they're all working. That looks pretty good. Okay, so it's starting to get a little dark here, but the last couple bulbs that we care about are the map lights. And the way to do this is you just kind of like pry it out from here, and it pops out like that. And you can see the bulb is up in here, just kind of held in place. And you can just kind of pry it out with your screwdriver, and it just pops right out. So when I did my research, it said that this size should fit up here in the map lights, and clearly it's a little bit smaller, so not ideal. I'll have the correct ones linked down below, but I think I can make this work. I'll just kind of squeeze it in and make it fit. Yeah, so I just kind of wedged it in there, and clearly it works just fine. Now the other thing you can do with these map lights is there's this metal cover that sits inside of it, and it helps direct light, out to the person. But you can take that out, and then it just creates like a diffused light instead of like a light beam, sort of. So let me show you here. Comparing the map light with and without the metal in, you can see that this creates kind of like a spotlight effect, whereas with the metal out, it's just like a big floodlight. So personal preference, you can leave the metal in or out. I kind of like the spotlight thing. It makes it just a little bit dimmer. It's not so in your face at night. But I mean, it's easy enough to swap out. You just pry this back off and this pops easily out. So yeah, up to you. Last light we're going to be doing today is the dome light up here. And honestly, this is probably the easiest light to do. You can just kind of get up under here with your screwdriver and pry it down from the right side, and then this comes right off, and you can see the bulb in here. Pull it right out. Actually, let's see. So you press this side in, and then the bulb releases, and it just comes right out. So the LEDs that I bought for the map lights and the dome light do fit in the dome light. You can see it's the correct size, and it should just pop right in. The opposite of how the other one came out. Push this side in, and then just kind of feed it up in there. Pop the cover back on, and we're good to go. For the bulbs in the doors, they're also T10s, and you can just kind of pry off the plastic cover to gain access to the bulb, and then just kind of pull it out. New T10 goes right in, and then throw the cover back on. Easy as that. Okay, so we got the lights in the doors done. You come inside and they match the dome light. If we turn these guys on, they all match, which looks really nice. Turn the headlights on and all this lights up nice and bright. It's a really good, clean look. If you look online, a lot of times they look really blue, and honestly this camera's making it look kind of blue, but in real life it's actually pretty white. I was worried it was gonna look, you know, like too blue, like it's trying too hard. But in real life it actually doesn't look that bad, especially in the gauge cluster and the HVAC controls. Another light that we can replace is up in the glove box. It's actually up under here. It's another T5, but I tried to get this cover off and I ended up breaking the cover, and I cannot for the life of me figure out how to get this bulb out without breaking it. So I'm just gonna leave it. It's burnt out right now, and honestly it's never affected me, so I'm just gonna, you know, not bother with trying to replace it. You can also replace the bulb that lights up this ring, and that's another T5. You just kind of, once you have this panel off, you can pop off this ring, and it's really easy to see the bulb, because right now it like glows green, but you could replace it with any color LED. I only have the whites, and I kind of like the green as opposed to white, so that's why I'm not bothering to replace this one either. Okay, so I've got a couple before and afters here. This daytime one really goes to show how dim the factory lights were. You really didn't even see any change if you turn your lights on during the day. With the LED upgrade, you can definitely see them flick on, even at their lowest brightness. At night, you'll see that a bunch of my factory bulbs were burned out behind the HVAC controls, and everything had that older green glow. I even had a few buttons I didn't know were supposed to light up because they were burned out before I even bought the truck. The new bulbs make everything look super clean. They're still dimmable, so they can get super bright, but on their lowest setting, it's still a very reasonable brightness. It doesn't go quite as low as the factory bulbs did, but I don't see it being an issue for most situations. Here's a quick clip of the new dome light. Super bright, almost too bright if I'm being honest, but it's still a clean white light. For the map lights, I decided to leave the metal shields in place. Without them, it was just way too much brightness, and with them in, it still lights up your lap pretty good. So there's probably other small lights in the interior that people have replaced, you know, little ones here and there, but I feel like I hit kind of all the big ticket items, and I'm really happy with the difference that it's made already. If you have any other questions about other lights or what I did, ask it in the comments. I should be able to find you a good answer if I don't have it already, or someone else might have a good answer for you. Tons of people have done LED upgrades inside these trucks, and you know, you'll go get a good answer if you ask it. So yeah, other than that, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing, and have a great rest of your day.